Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dinka Salvador, and today I want to talk to you about endometriosis and how it affects millions of women's lives and what you actually can do about it. So, endometriosis affects about 10% of women in the whole world. It's a very common condition in my view, and I will share in this video what was the turning point in my journey. This is not just going to be another video about supplements, and I promise to give you easy to apply lifestyle changes that helped me beyond standard medical advice. So let's get right into it. Before we go any further, I just want to do a little disclaimer. I am not a medical professional. I'm just sharing my own journey and what worked for me. You should definitely seek professional medical advice. So what is endometriosis? Chances are, if you're here, you have either heard about it or it's a condition that you're facing yourself. Endometriosis is basically misplaced tissue. So the tissue inside your uterine wall that causes you to bleed every month when you have your period gets misplaced, and it's either outside of your uterus or in your fallopian tubes, sometimes on your ovaries, somewhere in the abdominal region, and it causes inflammation. In extreme cases, it can even happen in your eyes or in other different organs, but most commonly in the abdominal area. So I'm just going to talk to you about my personal journey with endometriosis. I somehow always knew that it's not how it's supposed to be from a very young age. I remember when I first started my period that it was just so painful. And then, of course, everyone around me, mostly older women, would tell me, oh, this is normal, that's just part of life of being a woman, that you have to suffer. And I kind of was like, okay, so I don't know, this is new for me. So I just kind of believed it until I remember when I was like 19 or 20 years old, all of a sudden I had extreme pain in my lower abdomen on the right side, like this really sharp pain. So much so that I ended up in the emergency room, and they pretty much thought that I had appendicitis. They almost sent me to surgery. But then one of the doctors was like, okay, let's do an echo just to be sure. And then it turned out that I had a cyst on one of my ovaries. So they gave me a bunch of medication, sent me home, and they said that it should get better with the medication. It wasn't big enough or serious enough to have surgery, which I was happy about. But then basically, this was one of the first symptoms now in retrospect that I identify with endometriosis. It took me 15 years to get a diagnosis because there is no way to diagnose endometriosis other than they put like a little camera through your abdomen and they just look if there's any tissue where it's not supposed to be. Over the years, what I have come to understand is that very seldom a male gynecologist can relate to this condition. So I have been seeking advice from female gynecologists. It's very simple. It's like no uterus, no opinion. That's pretty much my approach. The emotional toll of endometriosis is rarely discussed. Basically, you feel hopeless. You are stuck in a victim mentality and you are being gaslit all the time. People are telling you that you're making this up, this is not happening, it's not a thing. Just because it's so difficult to diagnose endometriosis, you're basically being told that you are crazy. And so this is not sustainable. I think that it's very important to talk about this and to find a way that women can take back their own power, that you can just feel better and find a solution that works for you. There are a couple of common misconceptions about endometriosis. First one being that it's not real. In my view, you know your body best. It doesn't matter how many years someone has studied the human body in general, they have never been inside of your body. And if that person is a male, they cannot even relate to what you're going through. As I said, it took me 15 years to get diagnosed. I've been told by many, many doctors that this is not a thing, that I'm crazy and, I just have to suck it up. This is part of being a woman and so on. So listen to your body's signals and trust your body, because your body is a super intelligent computer and it knows a lot more than we think. The second misconception, that it cannot be cured. I have had surgery for endometriosis. While they were checking for it, if I had it, they went ahead and removed those misplaced tissues. But the thing is that it can come back at any time. So even if they remove it surgically, there's no guarantee that it will not resurface. But I feel that for many women, this can be a powerful confirmation that this is not just something in their head, but that it's basically, it proves them that they weren't wrong and they are not crazy. I find that mind-body connection is something that doctors very often miss. I strongly believe that our body holds on to trauma, and especially female trauma. So endometriosis is known to be linked with all kinds of trauma, your own or inherited, around childbirth, motherhood, miscarriages. And I find exploring and being aware of these things, that it can be something very, very helpful. What can you do to start making changes in your life to get better, to feel better when you are experiencing endometriosis? I would start at rethinking your relationship with your body. When my situation was the worst, I would have extremely painful and very, very strong periods for a long time, sometimes as long as 12 days. Some of those days I would just be crying on the floor in fetal position, counting the minutes to take the next painkiller. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't make plans. I couldn't function as a normal human being. So at a certain point, it was so bad that I started to refer my period as Tarantino, because it was pretty much like one of his movies where it was just like blood everywhere. And now, again, in retrospect, I see how it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Basically, what I've done is I shifted my perception of my period being a Tarantino movie into a much milder experience. So now I call my period spotty. And after a lot of work, mindset, and lifestyle changes, I do see a huge difference. I do experience much lighter periods. I have much less pain, and it's just overall more manageable and predictable. Another thing which I find extremely powerful is just your mindset. So basically, instead of saying I have endometriosis, I shifted my wording, and now I say I am recovering from endometriosis. This is a very subtle change, and it feels a little bit weird even in the beginning. But what it did for me, it puts me back into the driver's seat. I'm no longer a victim of something, of a condition that I have, but it's an act of recovering from something that I had. And it's very liberating. To me, this was probably the biggest game changer. And I think that for a lot of women, just being gaslit about this, that, it's something that you're crazy, you're making this up. I think this can be a huge shift, that you no longer at the grace of other people telling you what is wrong with your body. Probably there's nothing wrong with your body. It's a condition that you have for probably some sort of trauma that you or one of your family members went through that manifested in your body. But that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. And as long as you treat yourself that there's something wrong with you, your body will respond to that. So I think this was the biggest switch that I've made, that I am now very, very consciously choosing my words around how I express myself around endometriosis. And it's a new skill, right? So it's like a muscle. You have to strengthen it. You have to catch yourself making the mistake and correcting yourself, and it gets easier the more you do it. Another thing that helped me is just tracking symptoms and pain and bleeding and everything. Just keep track of your data. I find with anything that what gets tracked gets improved. So I have been tracking my periods ever since I remember. I think on my current phone, this app I have for 10 plus years. But they also added new features, so there's more and more things that you can track. Do you have cramps, or do you have any kind of aches or whatever that you are noticing on certain days? prior, during, or after your period. This helped me to see patterns. And it's just basically more data about what your body needs. And the more you are aware of it, the more you can change it. And just sharing your journey, there are so many women out there facing the same challenges as you do. Some of them maybe are completely unaware what is this called, or how they can help themselves, like I was when I was younger. So just putting the word out there and raising awareness of this condition, and just being an advocate, a voice for women with this condition, can be extremely helpful. This is one of my main motivations starting this channel, because I really want to help women to communicate these things to each other, and to create a community where you can be part of something that is not just you alone against the world, but there's a sisterhood where people take care of each other and help each other. So what are the daily practices that helped me? There are a couple of movement practices that I have been doing on a daily basis, but especially during my period. And one of them is actually just kind of pelvic rocks. So what I like to do is I just sit on a yoga ball, and then I just start slowly rocking my pelvis front to back, side to side, like kind of any kind of shape that feels right. And I do this religiously in the last half year or so, like every single day for 20 minutes. And this has been a huge game changer for me. Endometriosis is also known to manifest because of stagnant energies in that pelvic region. If you connect it with a certain kind of mindset, if you use this practice not only for a physical practice but also for a mindfulness practice, you kind of connect the two things. You can either say positive affirmations or just kind of have that feeling of health and vitality and hold that vibration inside of you while you're doing this, can be extremely beneficial. But any kind of slow movement exercise like Tai Chi or Qigong or gentle yoga can be very, very beneficial. And I highly recommend to anyone, basically any woman, to do one of these exercises, maybe even on a daily basis, but especially around the time when you are experiencing your flares or when you are having your period, because it starts moving energy around in that region. But you also have to feel and listen to your own body, like what kind of energy level can I go to, like how gentle this has to be. If it causes you more pain, obviously I would stop. But what worked for me, or what I have noticed, that this gentle kind of rocking motion really, really helps and relaxes like my whole pelvic area. Another thing that was a huge game changer for me was nutrition. So basically, I am as good as gluten-free, and I try to avoid sugar as much as I can as well. Eating organic is also very beneficial, and currently I'm eating a high-fat, low-carb diet. But then again, we are all very different. Everybody has different needs. Everybody has different health conditions. So I'm, again, just sharing what worked for me. But because endometriosis is basically an inflammation caused by misplaced tissue, gluten and sugar are both known to be highly inflammatory. And in my opinion, it's not good for anyone. But especially if you are recovering from endometriosis, I would at least try to avoid both of them for a week or even for a month. Just if you can do it, try it for a month. Wait until you get your period after not eating gluten and sugar for a month, and just see if there's a difference. And I promise you there will be. Because if your body is already inflamed, and then on top of that you get your period, then it's just going to make things much, much worse. Now, there's a lot of supplements out there, and a lot of people claim to have the magic pill or that just makes it go away. And I have tried probably 15 different kind of supplements that were suggested or recommended to me to cure endometriosis. I didn't really feel any kind of difference that would make me take these supplements on long term. But what I do recommend is taking turmeric or curcumin. I do this pretty much on a daily basis, again, because I just love it. And I truly believe in the anti-inflammatory properties of this. Well, I don't believe it. I know that it works. So what I like to do is I actually just buy the little curcuma roots. It looks like ginger, like a skinny ginger. And then I just scrape off the peels and I cut little rounds from it, like it's the size of a pill, and then I just take it as a pill. And I just use curcuma in my cooking as much as I can. I love the flavor of it. Maybe if you don't, it's something that is going to be a little bit more challenging for you. But if you don't like the flavor, just taking a little piece of the turmeric root, just scrape off the peel like you do with ginger, cut a little piece of it and just swallow it in one, can be a very good option for you. And then liver cleansing is also a very good practice if you are recovering from endometriosis. Why? Because one of the functions of the liver that a lot of people don't know is actually hormone regulation. So endometriosis is also known to be linked to hormone dysregulation. So it's basically an imbalance in your estrogen production, and the liver is responsible for that. So keeping your liver in a good shape is always a good idea, not only if you are recovering from endometriosis, but in general. So any kind of liver cleansing, any kind of herbs or natural products that help your liver to recover is always a good idea. And obviously avoiding taking medical drugs and alcohol that can be very heavy on your liver is also a great idea. Another supplement that worked for me was Shilajit. I know that it's kind of like a buzzword, and I was curious to try it because I've heard so many things about it, and I must say that it really, really worked for me. I feel like that's something that is kind of like a one-stop supplement because it has so many minerals in it. And weirdly, I even like the flavor. So if you don't know what Shilajit is, it's basically a type of resin, black gooey substance that you basically just dissolve in water and then you drink it, and it tastes like mud. But for me, it kind of tasted so familiar. I remember when I drank it for the first time, I was like, I know this flavor. So I don't mind the flavor. It's, for many people, maybe it's not pleasant, or some people even say that it's disgusting. But to me, I really, really felt the benefits. Somehow I felt that, like, after an hour or so, when I first drank Shilajit, I felt like my life just kind of went into HD, like everything was just like sharper. There are so many minerals in Shilajit that it kind of just boosts your whole body. It kind of puts you in this hyper state. But Shilajit is also something that you should be taking periodically. So I buy a little container, I take it as long as it lasts, and then I take a pause. And it's been a while since I finished the last one, so I'm thinking about getting a new one. But basically, that's what most companies recommend, that you should take it periodically. Another thing is sleep optimization. If your body is exhausted, it's much, much harder for it to deal with inflammation. I really prioritize my sleep. I have a very strict bedtime, and I also try to make sure that I wind down to bed so that I don't drink caffeine after a certain hour in the afternoon, and that I don't stimulate myself with like a lot of screens and flashy lights an hour or so before I go to bed. Again, this is easier said than done. In our society, we are all glued to screens, so this takes effort. But I also have to say that prioritizing my sleep has been a really important part of my recovery journey. And then there's the emotional journey. I think that for many women, it's really terrifying because you are dealing with uncertainty. You have no idea what's going on. Maybe you are getting mixed diagnosis from different doctors. You're going from one specialist to another. They want to put you on hormonal pills, or they want to to do surgery on you. It's overwhelming. So again, just kind of emotional regulation or finding some sort of outlet to express your emotions can also be very, very helpful in this journey. I find it that being transparent about it, talking about it to people close to me helped a lot. Most people I told were very supportive, and strangely, they either had similar experiences or know someone who's going through the same. And yeah, you can even keep a journal for yourself about this, and just, it doesn't have to be every single day, but when you are facing difficulties or when you are feeling really vulnerable, you can also just write down all the things that are in your head, and that kind of also expels that energy from your body. I also find that career adjustments can or must be made sometimes. For me, the worst part was when I was working at a tech company as a support agent, and that was the moment when I was experiencing the most pain and the most symptoms in my endometriosis journey. I had to miss work multiple times, and I felt so unsupported in that environment. I even felt guilty because the team was already understaffed, so we were always short on people, and every time I had to miss work, I felt that they were like rolling their eyes like, oh, here we go again, the whiny girl. So basically, when I quit that job and I focused on a more aligned, purposeful job, it made my journey so much better. It took the pressure off. But I also know that this is not necessarily an option for everyone out there. I'm just telling you this, if you haven't thought of it, for example, that this can also have a really profound impact on your journey. And building a support system, family, friends, a community, just people who are validating you. They are just there. Maybe they cannot even help, but they just hold your hand, and they just tell you that it's okay, that you will find a way, and that it will pass, it will get better. It's very, very important. But again, I find that the moment that you get out of that victimhood and take back take back control, that's really the moment where true healing can begin. Or at least for me, this was the big moment. And finding peace with your body. Our body does so many things for us without even asking for it. Just being grateful for your body, I think, is very, very important. It's a form of self-love. Not hating your body, doing this to you. I think, again, this is a mindset change. Being grateful for your body instead of hating it, it can make a huge difference. And then creating a plan. It doesn't matter how small of a step you start taking. Maybe it can be hydration, because that's also important. As I always say, I will probably sound like a broken record on every single video. I will tell you to drink more water, but please do. So just hydration, or going gluten-free for a month, starting to track your symptoms. It doesn't matter how small of a step it is, but just taking action and starting something new in the direction of getting better. It's baby steps. It's not going to be an overnight success. It's going to take effort. It's a journey. I am still healing from endometriosis. It's been night and day. It's been so much better. But I'm still not without symptoms. And I'm okay with that, because it's getting better every single month. And also building a flare management toolkit. I call it my period survival pack. So, your favorite hot pack, or like the cherry pit pillow, or whatever works for you. I find warm generally comforting when I have my period. But maybe it's something else for you. Maybe it's a weighted blanket. Maybe it's your favorite scented candle. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe it's a type of tea that you like to drink, or it's an incense, an essential oil. Whatever works for you, whatever comforts you, just kind of build a toolkit out of that, so that you have something to rely on when things aren't going so well. And there are a couple of preventive practices as well. Not so long ago, I discovered yoni steaming. Basically, yoni steaming is steaming your lady parts with water, with herbs. And this is a 1,000 years old practice. And I have tried it a couple of times and I really loved it. It just feels really nice. I love the ceremony of it. And I do believe that this can actually be helpful, especially if you use the right herbs. I'm going to share my experience in a separate video about yoni steaming. So just make sustainable changes. Maybe just try with one or two and try it for a while, and then whichever works, just stick to it and keep track of your progress as well, so you can see which actions actually brought the most change. So if you liked the video, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching it. I hope that you got some sort of value out of it, and I will see you on the next one.